Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle. I'll be your host again this week. Before we get into today, remind everybody, coming up this coming weekend, 23rd, 24th, 25th of October is the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous. Gates will be open by noon. Bring your own water, your own food and all. Respect social distancing for others. I'll probably be having the guest speakers up at the amphitheater area. We have some lighting and PA set up and everything ready. If need be, if a very low, small crowd, possibly we could be in the big Ramada, and it's all depending how things are. So looking forward to seeing some of the people I know are already coming out. And if you're not joining with us, maybe we'll have something we can present or put some video out, footage of the rendezvous for those of you who have been normally regulars that miss this event. That being said, this week, I'm in the Fender tee, but we have the Legend Superstition Mountains and the Dutch Hunter Rendezvous shirts in the black with white lettering, and then in the gray, lighter gray with black lettering. Represent.com, follow the link at the YouTube channel. You'll be able to go down there at cost. It's we're not getting anything out of this, so you'll be able to pick those up at cost and be fashionable if you like, and if not, I don't know what to tell you. Please subscribe. Hit the notification bell, it's down here, and leave a comment if you like. If you don't want to leave a comment, that's no big deal, and we try to answer what we can. If there is a question, we thank you all for watching and kind of hanging here with us. That being said and done, this week we're going to do something quite a bit different. We're going to take ourselves out of the Superstitions, another favorite area of the mountains I like here in Arizona, the Mogollon Rim. The rim country up north of Payson, from the Pine Strawberry area out towards the Heber and Show Low area. Quite a just wonderful place up there in the rim country. And I spent a lot of summers up in that area. Did a lot of fishing up at the lakes up there. So, and more than my fair share of hunting up there. And there were stories. And this story, I'm going to take you back. I'm going to say it's somewhere in the mid to late 80s. And that general area. And I will actually kind of put the names out there, even though I don't remember every single name and all. But the idea was we were going to go out and we wanted to kind of head up into the rim country for the weekend. And myself, Jeff Grigsby, and I can't remember their last names, Erica and Renata. And the four of us were heading up there, and we drove up. And I knew a particular vicinity area I wanted to kind of go up to where we could kind of have a fire and all that. We had a couple of coolers. Oddly enough, I keep thinking back and wondering, and many years ago, and we're younger, is whether or not dogs. But if we brought any food, I remember there was beer, there was alcohol and stuff, and I'm sure there was some food or something. So we kind of started heading up there, and we took our trip up there. And I remember I thought I was on the right road, and the road I was on kind of had trees to the left, and then when there was a little bit of an embankment and kind of open land to the right. And I was driving, and I knew there was a point where it should change and be trees on both sides, and it wasn't happening. And I remember we're going along, we saw a couple cows and, you know, a few cattle, and there wasn't much going on. And then we came down to this one spot where the road kind of took and did a kind of a slow hook and then kind of went down and turned and started to drop off to the left. So I thought, well, we must be getting into kind of the area I was looking for, even though I didn't remember this turn or particularly the road going that direction at that point. So we take this turn and we take this hook down and we get around, and then there was like and taking my memory back in, it was more than just structures. It looked like it was like some cabins and some sort of homes, or you know, but there were structures and buildings both sides. And we started, and I slowed way down coming into it because I was like, what's this? And I started to look, and I remember kind of looking right and left, and there were people and dogs. And I think the weirdest part about it all is as we kind of encroached into there, as I realized everybody was just stopped and looking at us. It was just kind of like a stare, you know? Everybody's just kind of looking at us and kind of like not moving, no movement. And I remember we're all in the car and the truck. I think we were in the car. I think it was the Mustang, in fact. And we're all just kind of like, this is kind of odd. And I was looking ahead thinking, well, maybe I'll just ask somebody for directions. Say, hey, we're looking for a spot, you know, to kick back and all. And nobody seemed very friendly. There was no expression change. No one ever stepped forward. No one, there was a guy near us, you know, a gentleman probably in his 30s or 40s holding a shovel. But they were just totally like frozen, even the dogs. And everybody, I went to get out of the car. I said, you know, let me get out, ask somebody, you know, if we took a wrong turn. There has to be a turn, or maybe I'm on the wrong road completely. So I figure I'll ask for some directions. And everybody was kind of like, nah, just, you know what, let's just turn around and get out of here. And so I was like, okay. And then I was looking ahead and I was realizing, where do I turn around? Because the road had kind of narrowed and there's these people and there was some kids and some people, and the kids were even standing there just like froze. Everything's catatonic, like Twilight Zone. And I was looking around, I was going, well, I don't want to, if nobody's going to move, I don't know what to do. It's like I'm going to get kind of stuck. So I just put it in reverse and we started backing up, going to this curve around this hill. And I remember turning to Jeff and saying, you know, let me know what they're doing. Are they doing any? And he said, no, they're not moving. Nobody moved. So as we kind of went up the turn and went around the curve and went back up over the hill, nobody ever moved. And they were all kind of a little bit like, that's just weird, dude. It was like they were frozen in place and there was no change, no emotion, didn't seem angry, didn't seem happy, just nothing. It was just like, it was just totally an awkward thing. So we got up where I knew they were out of sight, and I knew I could get the car turned around enough, and I got us turned around, started going back the other way. And I said, well, we'll hit one of these other turnoffs. We'll go back a couple miles, 2-3 miles, and we're going to hit a turnoff and find some place. We'll put some distance there. And I told them, I said, I'd never been down through here. I don't know what that was. Whether it was just a group, the small community, it was kind of sticking out there. It was very odd. I don't know if anybody's ever run into that, and I couldn't give you anything more of a description because it's been a long time. But I remember we hit that, and it was just kind of like, where'd these people come from? So we get down, we're going down the road, and we look over, and there was a road off a little bit to the right. So we went down that road a little back into the tree line. And we'd put some distance in, and I remember then we saw off to the right again, there was a little spot that went down into the trees. And there was, you could get down over there, and it was a bit, you couldn't really see the road, but it wasn't very far from it, and it was a nice little cleared area. And it was probably cleared about, I don't know, probably 70, 80 feet across. And it was kind of somewhat circular. So we parked, got everything out, blankets and stuff, put together stuff, went around, rummaged up a bunch of wood, and it was starting to get a little bit later, so we thought, okay, let's get a fire going. So we got a fire going, everybody's kicking back, and I don't think we had any music going, which is kind of odd, but I think we were all just sitting around talking, and we're talking, and it's becoming a very kind of quiet night, everything, and then we start hearing like breaking limbs or branches and stuff in the woods. And it was dark, and I know when you get the fire, you can kind of see flickers, but I could see back maybe 10, 12 feet back into the brush and trees. I couldn't see anything, but could hear it. And I was figuring at first, I'm just chalking it up to cattle. You know, cattle will come through camps and stuff, and especially up in that area, there's a lot of grazing and stuff. So I figured it has to be cows, and they're just walking around here and there. You're hearing a crunch of something as they move, and then they stop. They graze, or they're hearing us, and then some noise or the fire, and they're just kind of like, you know, and then they start to move again. So we're not thinking much of it, and it carries on a little, and you can kind of hear it to the right and the left, and you can hear it this, you know, and you could hear it, and at first it was kind of like, what's that? And then it's kind of, I'm figuring, okay, it's cat, and I think I even mentioned, I said, yeah, it's probably some cows moving through. Could be elk, but it seemed to me, the pacing and so forth and all, we never saw any eyes, anything like that. Weren't trying to look out there. There's nothing, it was just kind of like, okay, probably cows. So we kind of resumed and continued on, putting wood on the fire, and then things started to take a turn for the weird. So the first thing that happens is a rock comes flying in. And at first you don't know it's a rock. It's just something came in, you hear something hit, and it came over close towards the fire and heard it hit. And I looked over. Didn't see anything, but heard it, and it was just kind of like, what was that? You know? And kind of like, And I think everybody kind of did a pause for a second and thinking maybe something fell out of the fire or something, you know. But then a piece of wood, probably about this big, so big around, comes flying up, and it was probably 20 feet from us, hits the ground. And we saw it kind of come out, and it hits the ground. And we look at it, and it's not big. But I'm like, okay, cow didn't throw a piece of wood. So we kind of looked at that, and it was just kind of like, wow, that's kind of strange, you know. All right, and we're hearing that cracking sound once in a while, but nothing. And then we're getting kind of like, okay, where'd that come from? What's this about? So we're sitting there, and then another rock, and this time we knew it was a rock, and it came in and it hit and bounced kind of up towards the fire. And then it's kind of like, okay, hold on, somebody's messing with us. We're not sure if these people that we pulled up by, or there's someone else in the area and saw the fire, and they're you know, they just pulled over and decided. So we're thinking someone's messing with us here, and they've been moving around, they're messing with us. Now they're trying to make noise. So I just remember just kind of getting up and there's, hey, you know, cool it, you know, and that kind of thing. And then walking out away, kind of looking into the wood and not seeing anything, no movement, nothing around, everything gets quiet. And I'm kind of like, okay, not quite sure what I was hearing, but I'm not hearing really anything. So I'm gonna just go sit back down because everything's kind of stopped and all. But I'm keeping that kind of, there's somebody out there, you know. And everybody else at this point, of course, is kind of like on edge, kind of like, I don't know, you know, we're starting to get that. Maybe we should just grab everything and go, you know, maybe this is a waste of time. This just keeps getting weirder at this point. There we go. So we go through and we're just like, okay, what do we do? And then a larger rock, something about this size, because the ones before were like, you know, smaller rocks, one bigger. And it's nothing enormous or something you'd say, oh, who the heck could throw that? But it came through and it hit the ground and it made a big thump. And then it was kind of like, okay, that's weird, you know? And then I got up and I said, okay, that's enough, you know? We're just gonna leave. I don't know what the game is about this. And I kind of said it loudly. And of course, everybody else got kind of paranoid. I said, well, we're gonna leave, so might as well tell them, hey, you win, whatever. And so we got up and we started to grab things because we were just gonna grab the blankets, all the stuff, throw it in real quick, and then just start the car up and get out of there. So we grabbed everything up. We go to get up and get out. And then a couple rocks come and they go right into the fire pit, which throws up a bunch of sparks. And of course, that causes all of us to be like, what the hell? And I remember I walked over and grabbed my handgun, and I brought it out and I swung it out, and I said, I'm done. This isn't funny anymore. Whatever or whoever you are, you just need to stop. And I brought it up because I knew they would see me in the fire. And then another rock came flying out, hit the ground, but it was between the fire and over there. And it was like they were coming from a slightly different direction at times. So I'm like, you know what, whatever. And then I took and I, you know, fired 2 rounds off, boom, boom, off, you know, elevated up into the woods, which at this point in time, as an adult, I think was very stupid, not realizing the bullet and the trajectory and what was going on. But at the time, you know, you are kind of like at unease. You're not sure what someone's doing. You're not hearing voices. You're not hearing anything. And you're like, okay, what are you doing? You're really kind of getting to us and on this. And you already know I just showed, you know, did you think I wouldn't do anything? So I fired off a couple rounds and then everything gets quiet. And you know that quiet where everything gets so quiet that you're kind of like, oh, it's a bad quiet. And it got quiet. And you could just hear a couple pops in the fire. And I know Jeff had started the car. And I told him, come over here, we're not going to leave the fire going. Because I said, I'm just not going to do that. And I said, so we grabbed, we had some water, but and then we had a shovel because we were going to take care of the fire anyways and all. But yeah, it took, and we put the fire out for the most part. So we put the fire down. At that point, the car's running, the lights are on. But I'm not happy because obviously the headlights were pointing. We kind of circled it around, so the headlights were pointing the other way. So once that fire was done, then we got kind of like, really, okay, now can't sure if we hear anything because we're making noise and we hear the engine, and we don't know and can't see the same because our eyes haven't adjusted to the light, and we're going back between the car and here, so we're just kind of like, so then it was a little more like, hey, let's just get our crap together and let's get out of here. So we got in the car, threw everything in, just get up, and we go up that hill. And I didn't race, but I got out of there and was just like, okay, nobody be there, because you're getting to that point where, you know, and I guess most of our audience remember, like a deliverance feeling, like this is just not going our way. So then we get up to the road and it's just like decision time. Let's just go home. Of course, you're sitting there going like, yeah, you know what? We've had to mess with enough. This is just, enough is enough. It's time for us just to get out of here. We're going to hit the road. We're going to head out and we're going to drive back down to Phoenix. And it was late. It was probably 11 or 12:30, but it was just, we were all at the point of saying, you know what, it isn't worth it. Let's just drive home. Everybody's kind of feeling like, you know, you're drained, and okay, so we're done, and everybody kind of had that whole thing, and so everybody mellows out because once we're leaving, it's just, we're going home, so no big deal. So we're going home, and we're driving along. And I'm looking out, and you know, you got your high beams on. There's nobody on the road. I'm driving along. Well, I'm looking right, and now the woods are, of course, on my right. That slight embankment, I don't know. It's probably, I'm looking at the top of it just below the window level, and then there's brush, you know, and the pinion and a lot of stuff up there. And I'm looking over there, and I'm looking at the road, and I'm looking to see if anything breaks out in the road because the headlights, and we're traveling across. And I don't want to hit a deer or a cow or anything like that, so I'm kind of keeping an eye on things. But you're kind of like also relaxing as you drive because we've put a mile or so more behind us, and it's like, okay, I don't see any headlights. I didn't hear anything. So it's probably, if it was somebody messing with us, you know, we're not even talking about it. We're just kind of like, that was so weird. What the hell was that, you know? And then, of course, we do not let our imaginations go with us, which could have been wild, which later we all talked about, like, what was that all about? We're driving, and I look over to the left, and I'll never forget, I looked, and I was like, what's that? So I look over to my left, and I'm like, whoa. And I hit the brakes, and everybody in the car starts going, go, 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 what are you doing, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm stopping. What was that? And everybody had turned and saw at the same time, I guess. So I put the car in reverse. I start backing up to get the headlights so they'll catch that spot, because I saw where it was. There was brush, and then there was a separation, an opening in the brush. And I start backing up to that spot, and everybody is in full-blown panic. I'm getting that grab at you. No, just go, 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 go. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? And I got back, and I pulled back, and I look over, and there's just an open space. And there was something there, and I knew there had been something there. And I turned, and I think Jeff was in the front seat with me. And I said to him, what was that? He said, dude, all I know is it was pale, it was weird, and it looked like it was melting. That was the weirdest thing I ever saw. Just, let's get the F out of here. And I looked back, and you could tell by the full-blown panic. I'm asking everybody, like, what? So then they completely melted down, because I said, well, I'm going to get out and see what it is, because there was something there. Now, I got out, and of course, they're screaming at this point. I went over to the embankment and kind of stood there, kind of put myself where I was kind of looking in there, and I had a flashlight, so I was kind of shining it in there. I'd found one in the glove box. And I couldn't see anything, couldn't see where anything had been, and I was kind of trying to figure out, it had to be something kind of low, because where what I saw was like a face, like a elongated, melted face, and red and white and streaky and just really weird looking. Where that was, it had to be something really kind of lower to the ground, and I was thinking it couldn't have been like a weird reflection of a cow's face, because it would have been higher up. You know, what was in there? And I was kind of looking at the ground and couldn't figure anything out. So I got back in the car. They're, of course, totally having a kind of like just a fit, and like, we need to get out of here. And I said, okay, I'm gonna get in the car. We're going, okay? So we're gonna get going. So we started going, and I started asking them, what did you see? And I hadn't given up that much, and they were just telling me exactly what I saw. Yeah, it had eyes. It looked like it was melted, like it was wax or something. It was totally weird. And I wasn't saying anything as we traveled, but it was kind of odd that the other 3 people had the identical story, saw the same thing, said, yeah, it was this far from the ground, and there was no difference in any of the stories. So we all talked about it, kind of like, and then it kind of starts drifting out as you put the miles behind you and all, because the whole night, it was between the group and then the campfire thing and then that thing, we're just totally like, let's just get out of here. Now, the story behind all this would always make me curious because I don't know what we saw. It could have been anything, and because of the lights going through about probably 30, 35 miles an hour, who knows what we think we saw. We did all see the same thing that we thought we saw. And how whatever imagination can take you, but it brought me back to a story from younger days, probably 3, 4, 5 years before, that I'd heard up on the rim. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking Bigfoot, right? He was throwing rocks and sticks, and I could, hey, whatever you want to believe. I tend to believe it was people doing that, and whatever it was, and I don't know who it was, but I tend to always think it was human in that nature. So we didn't talk about it much going home, and I kept kind of my thoughts to myself. And then after that, we really never talked about it. So I always found that strange, is that it wasn't this thing. Do you remember that time? Because even Jeff and myself for years, if I kind of brought up, remember that time we went to Pace, and he's like, dude, I don't even want to talk about that, what that was. So whether it was related, unrelated, how it ever was. But the odd thing that I kept to myself was the story I had always heard up on the rim and by many campfires was about the Mogollon monster. Now, most people think of the Mogollon monster as a Bigfoot and that kind of thing. But what I'd always heard the Mogollon monster was, there was some settler or someone like that, and he'd been trapped in a cabin. The Apaches had burned him alive, and his haunted self, burnt self, haunted the mountains and ran through the mountains. That's what I always had heard, the Mogollon monster story that I'd heard for many, many years. And that's kind of what I thought we saw over there. Now, how does that relate to anything else? I don't know. You be my guess. Guess, feel free, whatever you want to think. I know I posted, I did a write-up of this many years ago and posted it somewhere and talked about it. And it's just one of those strange occurrences that you spend enough time in the mountains and enough things, something happens eventually. So thanks for joining us this week. The rendezvous coming up, so remember, see you there, and we will kind of get things back in pace. But thanks for joining with us as we took a nice trip up to the Mogollon Rim and kind of made a little bit of a change of pace. So catch up, represent.com, the t-shirts, everything else. See you at the rendezvous. Take care. Until next week, this is Wayne Tuttle and Chasing Legends. Hey Trevor, I hopefully you'll be able to use all this and the audio and everything will be good. I know the lighting, it's just nothing on this went well. I don't know why, but the camera kept stopping, it kept freezing. It kept pausing itself, and the battery went low several times. So hopefully everything's usable. And but it was kind of almost a nightmare to tell this story and get through the whole thing tonight. So I don't know what it is. If you need me to recut it and redo it, then let me know, and I can put it together. But yeah, this was an odd one because just nothing seems to be working right. So I'll send you the files. Hopefully the audio and everything comes out fine, and you can kind of pull this together, okay? So yeah, I don't know. It was a weird one, man. It kept kicking me out and nothing but problems. So now that I'm done, everything seems to be working fine. Still with the shadows and stuff and the lighting, but let me know, okay? Give me a shout back once I send you the files if review some of it, and we'll see, okay?